Alright, so today I want to introduce you to the Autumn Sun gene in ball pythons. I can almost guarantee that you haven't heard of the Autumn Sun. It's actually a brand new gene that was first discovered just a few years ago by a breeder in Wales in the UK, over the ocean, not here in the United States, which is kind of interesting. It seems like a lot of the new genes are being developed overseas, and I actually found it over on Morphmarket. I was just kind of browsing through the snakes, and I ran into this snake listed as an Autumn Sun, and I was like, I wonder what genes are in the Autumn Sun. I really haven't heard of that combination. Come to find out, it's just one single gene. It's a brand new gene. I actually found some information over on a Facebook page where they gave a little bit more information about the Autumn Sun, and it seems like, as far as what they can tell right now, that it's either a dominant or a co-dominant mutation, which is pretty interesting. They haven't produced a super yet, and that's pretty exciting. It's a really bright and flashy snake. It could really add to a lot of the combinations that we make with the really bright and flashy genes. So today I want to jump over the internet and I want to show you a couple pictures of the brand new Autumn Sun gene. Alright, so I'm going to jump over here at morphmarket.com, and I want to start with this snake right here. This is just a normal ball python, so you can kind of see what the gene is compared to a normal. It's always kind of good to see just the classic wild type normal ball python, and some genes are really super subtle, and let me tell you, when it comes to the Autumn Sun, it is definitely an obvious gene when you actually, even the gene by itself and mixed into combinations, it's really obvious. So this is a normal, just pretty much a wild type classic ball python with pretty much the normal gold color. Sometimes you get kind of alien heads on the side, like a Roswell gray alien head. Sometimes you can have a little bit of a jumbled up pattern. Normals can actually vary quite a bit from one to the other, but most of them look pretty much like this. So take a look at this snake right here. This is the Autumn Sun. Pretty incredible. And when I first saw this, the first thing that I thought of is it looks really similar to an orange ghost. I've actually seen some orange ghosts that are almost as orange as this. Usually with the orange ghost, since it's actually a ghost, usually it kind of fades out the whole snake. And you can definitely tell on this one, not only is it not an orange ghost, it's actually a dominant or co-dominant. So if you bred it to something else, half the offspring would come out as the Autumn Sun. It's always interesting on these new genes. You really never know exactly what you have or what you're getting into with some of these genes. You know, some of them can turn out like disastrous, like, you know, some genes like the desert have a problem with the females, and that was really popular at first, then they found out it had a problem and it just kind of tanked, and nobody does the desert gene hardly at all. You hardly ever find deserts, which is kind of interesting. And with the new gene, it's really exciting, and really I think this is the lifeblood of the ball python industry, all the new genes coming out. It seems like almost every year we get quite a few new genes that I just discover randomly here and there all around the world. If you actually look at the ball python industry as a whole over the entire globe, let me tell you, there's some pretty amazing stuff coming out every single year. So this is the Autumn Sun. If you actually take a look at the ad over here, this was actually produced by New Venture Ball Pythons over in Wales, which is kind of crazy. And if you actually look here, there's no genes. So if you actually come over here on Morphmarket, kind of the hard part with new genes is you're actually trying to figure out, all right, I want to see all the Autumn Suns, and you really can't search for them. Sometimes it's kind of problematic with a new gene if it's not in the system. You know, there's like over 100,000 ball pythons over here, and if it's not actually in the database, it can be a little bit problematic. And I actually wanted to show you one more example of what the Autumn Sun could do with the albino. They've actually produced an albino Autumn Sun, and even the gene by itself is pretty amazing, but if you actually mix it in with albino, you can definitely see a really strong and dramatic effect when you mix it in with albino. So it's kind of interesting. If you actually look at the albino, usually the albino is really visually dominant, meaning if you work other genes into the albino, a lot of times you end up with a yellow and white snake with kind of a jumbled up pattern. Even the strongest genes mixed into albino, sometimes you'll actually end up with pretty much just a white and a yellow snake with a jumbled up pattern, and you won't really see the other genes underneath unless you can kind of pick them out from some of the markers in the pattern of the albino. So here's what happens if you work the Autumn Sun into the albino. Take a look at this. This is pretty amazing, and it looks like it almost overwhelms overwhelms the albino as far as bringing out this really beautiful orange color. This thing is almost on fire. It's just like glowing. It is pretty amazing. I can't even believe that something could do that to the albino. Sometimes it's kind of hard in pictures, and with just a few examples of the gene, it'll be really interesting to see what this can do as far as working it into all the other genes. If you actually look at this one, you can definitely tell, you know, at first glance, if you found this over in Morphmarket, you'd be like, hey, this is an albino, and you know, some people actually name their snakes. And when I first saw this, I was thinking, well, maybe this is the name of the snake, Autumn Sun, and it's just an unusual albino, until you look at the price and you're like, wait a minute, something's going on here. And sure enough, this is actually another brand new gene worked into the albino. Pretty amazing project. All right, so it is time for the question of the day. And FTW666L Super Beasto asks, do I have to worry about salmonella on my ball pythons? And that is a very good question. So if you actually go to some of these reptile shows, they'll actually have warnings posted that you can actually catch salmonella from certain reptiles. And I've actually seen people selling ball pythons where they'll actually have a salmonella risk associated with the ball pythons. And let me tell you, I think I totally disagree with the salmonella risk on ball pythons. I've actually seen some big breeders that have been breeding for 20 or 30 years, producing tens of thousands of snakes, and they'll actually get it on the videos on YouTube, and they'll actually say right in the video that they have yet to have one person come down with salmonella from any of their ball pythons. As a matter of fact, some of these guys in rebellion, they'll eat some snake sheds or do something crazy like that just to prove that ball pythons are completely harmless and there's no way that you can catch salmonella from a ball python, which is kind of interesting. Although I have heard other reptiles and other animals can be a really high risk from salmonella, and one of those is turtles. So if you go to some of these reptile shows, you'll notice sometimes they'll actually have a size limit on the size of the turtles that you can sell. As a matter of fact, if you're selling turtles, I'm sure you know all about the size limit on the turtles. And it's kind of interesting, kind of what I've heard from the turtles is you can't sell one that's so small that someone could put it in their mouth, potentially giving them salmonella. That's where I've heard the rule comes from. I don't know how true it is, but it's kind of interesting that they regulate the size of the turtles because of the salmonella. I've also heard backyard chickens can be a really high risk of salmonella, which is kind of interesting. So I wanted to leave you with a little bit of my motorcycle. I actually bought my motorcycle. If you actually watched my live stream about this, as a matter of fact, it's been almost 3 months since I did my live stream marathon. I actually did a 36-hour live stream trying to raise some super chat funds to buy a motorcycle. And if you donated some super chat to buy the motorcycle, I definitely wanted to thank you. I was trying to figure out how to get everybody's name from the super chat, and for some reason I can't pull it out of my YouTube analytics, and the only way I can actually do it would be to go through like 36 hours of live stream to figure out who actually donated the super chat. So it's not really possible. I was actually going to list everybody's name, but I actually got that motorcycle, and just the other day I put it in my garage, and I definitely wanted to show you my new motorcycle. So let's jump over to the garage and check out my new chopper. All right, so here is my garage. You can actually see all my junk in here. It's not too bad. I've been working on trying to clean it up, and here is my new chopper, and you can actually see all the other junk I have in here going on in my garage. There's my Porsche, which I really like. It's an old Porsche from '04, and this is my 2007 Harley Davidson Dyna Street Bob. Pretty awesome. I went to pick it up yesterday, and look at how cold it is outside. I actually had to trailer it in on a U-Haul trailer. It was so cold yesterday that there was like a blizzard. There's like cars in the ditch and everything. And today it's so cold, if you breathe in through your nose hairs freeze. It is super cold. And it's kind of interesting. I bought this about 2.5 months ago, and I've been looking at pictures online, didn't really know what it looked like, and they finally got it here after they shipped it. And on first impression, kind of the thing that kind of caught me off guard, it seems like a bigger bike than I was expecting, especially that gas tank. Look at how thick that gas tank is. Super big. And then I did make one modification. I actually put a little license plate frame on. You gotta have bones and skulls and flames somewhere, right? And then I got my license plate and my registration. I just can't drive it because it's so cold And the streets are just solid ice up here in the mountains. It's kind of crazy. So it got a little bit dirty kind of coming up here, but it is pretty. It's a pretty awesome bike. The other thing that kind of surprised me, I thought these handlebars were going to be really flimsy, and they're a lot thicker. They're really super beefy handlebars than what I thought. And kind of the weird thing is I didn't notice the grips. It looks like these, it kind of looks like these are real leather grips on here, which is pretty awesome. So what I want to do is I'm actually going to start it up so you can hear how it sounds. And kind of the cool thing is it has these little recessed gas caps that you just push down and they pop up, and then you unscrew them and you can actually put your gas in there, which is kind of cool. I've never seen, I actually had to ask the guy, they dropped it off at a Harley shop, and I had to figure out, I had to ask the guy, how do I get into the gas cap? Because it's like, it's like a trick gas cap. And then over here, you have the digital gauge for the fuel gauge, which kind of lays flush with the bike, which is pretty wild. If I start this up, there's no talking after this, which is kind of crazy. So the ignition's over here, turned over here, and it is totally fuel injected. So you hit the run button over here, you can hear the fuel pump, and then the start.